In this gripping story, we follow a 60-year-old American sailor who made a serious error while attempting to cross the vast and unforgiving Indian Ocean. What started as a routine voyage quickly turned into a life-threatening ordeal, one that could have been avoided with the right knowledge and preparation. But what exactly went wrong? And more importantly, how can you avoid making the same mistake? In today's video, we'll break down the critical decisions that led to this sailor's near disaster and uncover the must-know strategies that every seafarer should have mastered before setting sail. From handling unexpected storms to managing vital equipment failures, this tale is more than just a cautionary story. It's a wake-up call for anyone who thinks the ocean can be taken lightly. Whether you're a seasoned sailor or dreaming of your first big crossing, this video is packed with powerful lessons from real-life experience. Stick around until the end to learn what could have changed everything and how staying prepared might just save your life out there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss more true stories, survival tips, and sailing wisdom from the world's wildest waters. Let's get into it. The horizon of the Indian Ocean was a silver streak beneath a sky heavy with gray clouds, where the island packet 380, christened Freedom's Call, sliced through the waves with the resolve of a seasoned sea wolf. It was March 15th, 2024, and Captain Robert "Bob" Thompson, a 60-year-old American, sailed alone, with the wind abeam blowing at 22 knots and the sea beginning to churn with 2-meter waves. The boat, a sturdy fiberglass hull with a full keel, rocked rhythmically, driven by a partially furled Genoa and a mainsail with the first reef. Bob, a retired naval engineer from Tampa, Florida, was on the 5th day of a challenging crossing, departing from Phuket, Thailand, bound for Durban, South Africa, as part of his dreamed-of circumnavigation. Beneath the apparent harmony of the journey, however, a catastrophic failure loomed, triggered by an error he never imagined would be fatal: neglecting to thoroughly inspect the rudder before setting sail. Bob was an experienced sailor, with over 10,000 nautical miles logged in the coastal waters of the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the U.S. East Coast. His passion for sailing began at 18, when he joined his father, a yacht captain, in local regattas in Tampa Bay. By 30, he was commanding his own 30-foot sloop, braving storms in the Keys, and sailing to the Bahamas. After retiring in 2021 at 58, Bob decided to fulfill his dream of sailing around the world. Inspired by legendary navigators like Joshua Slocum and Robin Knox Johnston. In 2022, he acquired Freedom's Call, a 2001 island packet 380, renowned for its robustness and reliability for long-range cruising. The sailboat, designed by Bob Johnson, had ideal specifications for circumnavigation: an overall length of 12.09 meters, a beam of 4.01 meters, a draft of 1.42 meters, a displacement of 9,525 kilograms, and a sail area of 76.7 square meters. The Yanmar 4 JH3E 50 horsepower engine ensured reliable propulsion with a 151-liter diesel tank. The 378-liter water tank was supplemented by a Spectra Ventura 150 desalinator, capable of producing 24 liters of fresh water per hour. Bob invested heavily in upgrades to make the boat self-sufficient. He installed 4 100-watt monocrystalline solar panels, connected to a Victron MPPT charge controller, powering 2 200-amp-hour lithium batteries. A D400 wind generator complemented the energy system, ensuring electricity on cloudy days. For navigation, he equipped the boat with a Furuno 1835 radar, a Garmin GPS Map 943X SCBI chart plotter, a Class BAIS, and an ICOM M506 VHF radio with DSC. The communication system included an Iridium GO satellite phone, essential for weather updates and emergencies. Safety was a priority. Freedom's Call carried an ACR Global Fix 4 EPIRB, a Viking Rescue 4-person life raft, 6 inflatable life jackets with strobe lights, fire extinguishers, flares, and a comprehensive first aid kit. The steering system, consisting of a robust spade rudder and a Raymarine EV200 autopilot, seemed impeccable until Bob, pressured by the urge to sail before the monsoon season, skipped a detailed inspection of the rudder shaft, trusting that its last check, 6 months prior, was sufficient. Bob's preparation was intense but not flawless. He spent 18 months planning the circumnavigation, studying routes, meteorology, and ocean navigation techniques. He took safety courses with U.S. Sailing, learned to use a sextant for celestial navigation, and trained in basic repairs, such as patching sails with Dacron tape and maintaining the Yamar engine. He read accounts from sailors like Lynn and Larry Party, jotting down tips on improvisation at sea. However, his experience was predominantly coastal, and the solitude of an ocean crossing was a new challenge. He underestimated the psychological toll of weeks at sea, where the mind swings between euphoria and despair. Moreover, the rush to depart from Phuket, driven by forecasts of favorable winds, led him to skip critical steps, like disassembling the rudder to check for corrosion or fatigue in the shaft. This mistake reflected his emotional dynamics. Bob sailed not just for adventure, but to honor the memory of his wife, Ellen, who died of cancer in 2020. She dreamed of crossing oceans, and the circumnavigation was his posthumous promise to her. The chosen route was one of the planet's most demanding, crossing the Indian Ocean from Phuket to Durban, passing through the Maldives and the Chagos Archipelago. The 4,000 nautical mile journey required meticulous planning. Bob opted for the transitional season, March to April, when northeast winds prevail, ranging from 15 to 25 knots, and temperatures fluctuate between 25 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius. Currents, like the South Equatorial Current, flow at 0.5 to 1 knot, demanding constant course adjustments. He planned stops in the Maldives at Malay to replenish diesel, water, and supplies, and in Chagos at Diego Garcia Atoll for rest subject to permits. The longest leg from Chagos to Durban would cover 2,500 miles and take about 20 days depending on conditions. Bob knew the risks. The Indian Ocean is notorious for sudden storms, waves up to 5 meters, and the possibility of out-of-season cyclones, especially in March. Sailors' accounts describe cross swell, where waves from opposing directions collide, creating treacherous conditions. He carried updated GRIB files via Iridium, but relied primarily on the chart plotter and Phuket forecasts. The first 4 days were grueling but rewarding. Bob woke at 5:30 a.m., adjusted the sails at sunrise, and checked his position on the GPS, noting latitude and longitude in a leather-bound nautical log. He cooked simple meals on the gimbaled stove, rice with beans or pasta with freeze-dried sauce, and monitored the desalinator, which hummed softly in the engine compartment. The solar panels kept the batteries charged, and the wind generator spun with the steady breeze. At night, under a star-studded sky, he sat in the cockpit, listening to the waves slap against the hull. Solitude was his constant companion. He spoke to Ellen, imagining her beside him, laughing at the stories they'd tell their grandchildren. He wrote in his log, Day 4, 6 degrees south, 73 degrees east, northeast wind 18 knots. Ellen, the sea is as vast as you said. I'm almost there. On the morning of the 5th day, the wind rose to 25 knots, and the sea grew rougher, with 3-meter waves breaking against the bow. Bob reduced the Genoa to 60% and took a second reef in the mainsail, holding a course of 230 degrees. He was 500 miles from the Maldives in 4,000-meter deep waters when he felt an unusual vibration in the wheel. At first, he thought it was a fouled Genoa sheet or debris caught on the rudder. He went below to the cockpit, opened the quadrant compartment, and found the wheel spinning freely with no resistance. Panic surged like bile. He rushed to the stern, clipped into the safety harness, and leaned over the edge. The rudder was gone, likely detached due to corrosion or a shaft fracture. Freedom's call was adrift, slowly spinning with the currents. Bob took a deep breath, trying to steady his trembling hands. Years of training taught him to prioritize logic in crises. He disengaged the autopilot, now useless, and assessed his options. Without a rudder, the boat couldn't hold a course, and the sails, still up, caused it to drift erratically. He lowered the Genoa and mainsail, leaving only the storm sail to stabilize motion. His first attempt was to rig an emergency rudder. He grabbed a 3-meter aluminum spinnaker pole, lashed it with Dyneema lines, and secured it to the stern with deck planks and stainless steel bolts. He spent 2 hours sweating under the sun, using a screwdriver and pliers to adjust the setup. But the waves, now 3.5 meters, battered the stern, misaligning the pole. The attempt failed, and the boat continued drifting, circling slowly. Desperation grew, but Bob forced himself to act. He activated the EPIRB, which began transmitting a 406 MHz signal to COSPASSARSAT satellites, broadcasting his position. He tried contacting via the satellite phone, but the connection failed, likely due to the dense clouds gathering on the horizon. He checked the VHF radio, but it was out of range of any coastal station. Bob donned his life jacket, clipped into the jackline, and prepared the life raft, dragging it from the storage compartment to the deck. The wind climbed to 30 knots, and the waves reached 4 meters, with white crests foaming. He noted his position in the log, 4 degrees south, 68 degrees east, and wrote, "Ellen, I did all I could. Forgive me." The storm hit at dusk, with lightning slashing the sky and rain falling in dense sheets. Freedom's call pitched violently, the hull groaning under the wave's pressure. Bob tried to protect the cockpit, covering the instruments with a tarp, but a rogue wave at least 6 meters slammed the boat broadside, throwing him against the mast. He struck his head, blood streaming down his forehead, and hurt a crack in his left arm, a fracture. The pain was excruciating, but he crawled to the cockpit, gripping the safety handholds. The boat began to heal, water flooding the deck and seeping through poorly sealed hatches. Bob fought to reach the life raft, slicing its tie-downs with a nautical knife. He managed to inflate it, but, weakened by concussion, hypothermia, and exhaustion, couldn't board. A second wave capsized the boat, and Bob, tethered to the safety line, was dragged into the depths. 6 days later, a search and rescue operation, coordinated by the Maldives Coast Guard and supported by a merchant vessel, located the wreckage of Freedom's Call 180 miles from its last position. The EPIRB worked, but the storm delayed the rescue. The life raft was found empty, floating 10 miles from the debris. No sign of Bob. The investigation, conducted by Island Packet Yachts and maritime authorities, revealed that the rudder shaft suffered galvanic corrosion, exacerbated by prolonged exposure to salt water. A visual inspection and ultrasound test would have identified the issue. The report concluded that the tragedy stemmed from neglected preventive maintenance and a lack of training in improvising an emergency steering system. Bob's story is a visceral warning for sailors, echoing lessons from historical navigators like Ferdinand Magellan, whose 1522 circumnavigation faced similar losses, or Robin Lee Graham, who at 16 sailed the world with ingenious improvisations. The maritime culture, with its traditions of preparation and respect for the sea, emphasizes rigorous checklists and knowledge sharing. Bob, despite his experience, underestimated the Indian Ocean, a sea that punishes arrogance with brutality. His solitude reflects the psychological toll of long passages. The sea amplifies emotions, turning confidence into carelessness or fear into paralysis. He sailed to honor Ellen, but the guilt of failing her may have clouded his judgment, causing him to overlook warning signs, like the subtle vibration in the wheel days earlier. To avoid tragedies like Bob's, sailors must adopt relentless safety practices. Before setting sail, the rudder should be disassembled, its shaft inspected for corrosion, cracks, or wear. Ultrasound tests or diver inspections are ideal. A spare rudder, such as a wind vane or reinforced oar, can be the difference between survival and disaster. Equipment like EPIRBs, life rafts, and life jackets must be tested monthly, with batteries checked and flares within date. Training for crisis scenarios, rudder loss, fire, capsize, prepares the mind to react under pressure. Essential tools include screwdrivers, pliers, dynamo lines, Dacron tape, and spare bolts. A detailed nautical log with updated positions aids rescue. Communicating passage plans to shore contacts via email or radio is critical. The maritime community also plays a vital role. Bob could have consulted sailors in Phuket, who would have warned him about corrosion common in older boats' rudders. Forums like Cruisers Forum or local marina groups offer practical advice. a tradition dating back to Polynesian navigators who shared star charts and survival techniques. The sea's culture values humility. No sailor, however experienced, is immune to the ocean's whims. Picture yourself in Freedom's Call's cockpit, the wheel spinning freely, the horizon lurching in circles, the waves roar, drowning your cries. Have you ever faced a critical failure at sea? How would you rig an emergency rudder with what's on board? What checklists would you follow before a long passage? Perhaps you'd carry a spare rudder, practice repairs with planks and lines, or inspect every bolt with a mirror. Perhaps you'd offer a prayer to the sea, as the ancients did, seeking protection. Bob's story reminds us that the ocean is a stern master, but its lessons are timeless. Freedom's Call now rests on the Indian Ocean's floor, its solar panels dark, its sails torn by time. Bob set out seeking freedom, but left a legacy of caution. May his tragedy inspire sailors to navigate with diligence, respect, and an unwavering eye for detail. At sea, the line between adventure and abyss is as thin as the horizon and as treacherous as a rogue wave in the dark.